Hello everybody, my name is Morand. I am one of the dancers on this project for this dance residency. My home reserve is Eagle Lake First Nation. I currently live here in Kitchener, Ontario, and I was really happy to collaborate with Christina Restol from Doki's First Nation and with Ascension Harjo from Six Nations. The whole goal of this dance residency was to explore what healing through dance means, both as a group and as individual people. Throughout this summer, there was the discovery of mass graves at Indian residential schools across the colonial state known as Canada. Obviously, this impacted Indigenous folks as a whole, but as you took a look at the world around us, the world was on fire. Indigenous people on the front lines fighting for climate justice were facing extreme colonial violence. This was a time where we needed to heal more than ever. So, when I was approached to do this dance residency by Empty Space and the NAC, I gladly accepted. It took me a while to figure out what exactly I wanted to focus on, and I had a lot of ideas that I wanted to explore. But when I contacted Christina and Ascension, that's when I knew that I wanted to discuss healing through dance. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, and for what feels like the first time in a long time, there was a large loss of culture. For a lot of Indigenous people, but especially for me as an Anishinaabe woman and a fancy shawl dancer, powwows are a way of healing, both through community and individually. It was a time where people could gather together, laugh, eat, dance, sing, drum, and get a general sense of community. This is a place where a lot of Indigenous people found solace, and as we're in the midst of a global pandemic, that was taken away. And so I felt it was really important to get together with both Christina and Ascension and discover what healing through dance meant for us, both on a scale of a pandemic, residential schools, colonial trauma. There was a lot weighing on us over this summertime, and so I'm really proud to unveil this project and to share it all with you. I can't begin to explain the absolute gratitude that I have for being able to gather with Christina and Ascension in the studio space and getting to discuss our findings through healing through dance. It was such a pleasure to be able to gather with them. I'm very thankful to Empty Space and the NAC for providing us that space. One thing that I found that was really common amongst the dancers was that we were all mourning the loss of powwows. Of course, the sense of culture, the sense of community that I just explained was something that we were all missing and something that we all lost. It was such a pleasure to be able to gather with both Christina and Ascension and lean on them for support, but also have them as a place of solace. They were incredibly kind, and it was so good to just be able to dance with them and to feel normal for a period of time. We were laughing, we were dancing, and we were able to relate to each other. There was a sense of community amongst the dancers, and I think that was one of the greatest things through this project was healing with each other. The day that we had the photo shoot with my friend Kate was really fantastic. We were able to gear up in our full regalia, got ready as we usually would for a grand entry, and it was probably one of the highlights of my summer. I want to say thank you to my friend Kate for doing those photos. She does fantastic work and is a great artist. If you're interested in her work, please give her a shout out. She's captured by Kate on Instagram. For my family personally, my great-grandmother attended St. Mary's Residential School in Kenora, Ontario. My dad actually grew up with his grandparents, my great-grandparents, for most of his childhood. He learned how to trap, he learned how to hunt, and he grew up on the family trap line doing all those things with both my grandmother and my grandfather. My great-grandmother would often tell stories about the residential school to my dad, and in turn, he's passed those stories on to me. From what I understand, St. Mary's Residential Schools was one of the worst residential schools in Ontario, and the absolute violence and impact that that has had on my family not only affected my great-grandmother, but also my family for generations to come after that. To give you a little bit of context, my great-grandmother was abused by her husband severely for being Indigenous, as he was a white man. And so this theme of colonial oppressors preventing her from participating in her Anishinaabe culture for all of her life was really abundant. And I found this to be really sad. When I participated in this project, I found myself thinking about my great-grandmother often and what it must have felt like to have your culture taken from you at a residential school and then prohibited from participating in it for the rest of your life onward. I had only lost powwows for the past year and a bit that COVID has taken place. Could you imagine what that would have felt like for your entire life? The grief and loss that her and her siblings must have felt must have been tremendous. I can't even begin to explain the sorrow that it's evoked in me over this short period of time. And I don't think there's any way for me to explain in words what this really feels like. One thing my dad did communicate to me over the summer was that my great-grandmother did, in very secretive ways, pass down culture to both him and my grandmother, my Kokam, talks about this at times as well. Just the very act of teaching my dad how to trap, how to hunt, and how to forage for berries was an active resistance to the impasse that her colonial abusers had placed on her and her culture. I thought about her resilience often and how, despite all of that, she was still willing to teach her culture in the little ways that she could. How she went through all of these different things throughout her lifetime and was still able to share that with my dad and with my grandma. I think about how amazing that was, and my heart absolutely beams for my great-grandmother and the absolute amazing woman that she was, that she faced all this adversity throughout her lifetime and still prevailed. I remember throughout the summer, there were periods of time where you could tell that my dad was really thinking of my great-grandma, and often. As more and more bodies and mass graves were found at all the Indian residential schools across the country, you could tell that there was this very hollow, solemn cloud that hung over my dad, and he was angry, and rightfully so. He would send me a lot of messages throughout my workday, explaining, talking about the things that his grandmother passed on to him, the stories, and how upset he was and how angry he was. It was really hard for him, and it was really hard for me to watch him struggle like that. I remember this really pivotal moment through this dance residency. I think I might have talked about the project slightly with my parents. Maybe it was a little bit vague, so I didn't give too much of the final product away. But at one point we were discussing residential schools and, my great-grandmother's experience. And so I really divulged to him what the project was, what was it about, what it meant to me, what my goal was. I'm also doing another project with Empty Space through the Arts Exchange where I'm working with a coworker of mine. Actually, we got paired up. We're creating a ribbon skirt and a beadwork set in honor of the residential school children and all those who didn't make it home. And we're going to display this as works of art and eventually auction it off and donate the proceeds to the Indian Residential School Survivor Fund. I talked to him about my dance project and how I often thought about our ancestors and my great-grandmother. And there was just this really profound moment where my dad pulled me close and he gave me a really tight hug. And it was quiet, and the silence kind of just hung in the air for a little bit. And he finally said, "If your great-grandmother was alive today, she'd be really proud to have a granddaughter like you." It was at that moment in time when I realized that the power of healing, the power of this project wasn't limited to just me. It also expanded into the people around me. It helped heal my dad. It helped heal me. I found a really nice connection with him over the summertime, and I was able to embark in that healing process together because of this project. I was able to work on healing with Christina and Ascension together as a group while we're mourning the loss of a culture that we absolutely love to participate in and we absolutely love to share with others. I remember a lot of teary phone calls with friends and other powwow dancers within the community as powwows just kept getting canceled and canceled because of COVID. It was so amazing to me that the power of healing, not only through my dance, but towards everybody else, had such a profound impact. I'm really sad that this project's over, but I can guarantee and I can promise that I'm going to continue on doing this good healing work and continuing carrying this good medicine that I've been doing. I want to take a moment and just express nothing but complete gratitude to Empty Space, the NAC, Christina, Ascension, Adrian, Kate, and all of the collaborators who worked with us on this project. We wouldn't have been able to do it without you. And I want to say Chimigwech Tikachimanado, Creator, for taking care of us as we embarked on this healing journey, but as taking care of those spirits of those children who never made it home as they passed through that western door, and for all the children who still walk on this earth. Chimigwech to all of you for tuning in.